Would you be scared to death if media tells you that Iranian manpads are going to shoot American airplanes out of the sky? Could it be that we'll start seeing planes being shot down, blamed on Iran, and America being dragged into yet again another war? Well, on January 4th, Sean Ryan, host of Sean Ryan Show podcast and ex-intelligence officer, interviewed Sam Shumate, an intelligence officer and retired chief warrant officer. During the podcast, they nonchalantly and openly discuss alleged Iranian manpad surface-to-air missiles and invisible bombs being snuck into the USA with no reputable sources, over divulging details in efforts to create credibility while fear-mongering and suspecting false flags.
But we had two solid sources, one south of the border and then one from an element within our own government, that confirmed independently of each other that some Iranian-made manpads, so surface-to-air missiles, had come across the border. We had the location and everything else. Well,
we have the New Orleans attack. We have Iranian missiles. We have these invisible bombs. Do you know about the invisible bombs? So now these terrorist organizations have developed invisible bombs.
In the podcast, they seem to be pushing a subconscious bias. In the event that the US potentially shoots some planes down and blames Iran, it becomes a "we told you so" moment. This reminds us of manufacturing consent, a revival of the Bush administration propaganda tactic regarding weapons of mass destruction. In a way trying to justify additional security and surveillance measures, Sam states, "You can't put the jihad back in the bottle." Sean also brings up that the danger of school shooters is much less than the threat posed by Iran, and that security needs to be upgraded no matter the cost. Even though a recent report published by the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions said firearms were the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in the United States for the third consecutive year, and homicides accounted for the majority of gun deaths among the age group. This is opening the floodgates for further mass surveillance and domestic militarization, especially at a time where army recruitment targets are not being achieved and further opposing their country's involvement in overseas war. Americans remain concerned with the endless wars at a time where the American people and taxpayers cannot afford rent, groceries, healthcare, and education. The crazy part about all of this is that the public is starting to turn away from mainstream media for their government propaganda, but are being fed the same narratives in podcasts perceived to be independent media, except this time, it came with a side of intelligence officers who are now podcasters. And this is the hard truth no one wants to hear.